areas of the left hemisphere are not well developed in autistic children, so that's the problem. Let's stimulate Wernicke's, let's stimulate the Broca's area. It's not the problem, okay? If they were getting the normal sound stream perception, if they could hear sounds, learn to attend to sounds, differentiate them from background sounds, learn to hear them for the first time, so now they could attach meaning to them, well, then they would develop Wernicke's area and then Broca's, and then express it through Broca's area. The problems aren't in those regions, okay? And I think we keep looking at the brain to find the problem in the brain, and I think the problem is in the mind, okay? And what we really want, and this is what I want to write this next paper sort of based on this talk, is let's put the brain in the service of the mind, okay? Because that's what we're trying to do, I think, with autism, and I think we're trying to do with many levels of learning disabilities. And I think that that's what Tomatis understood. How to be conscious of ourselves so that we could, and he would say, so we can use our will, okay? He talked about, the will, okay? And the only other person who talks about the will is William James, who is one of the greatest psychologists there is, and who's amazing, and talks about consciousness and will. But how do we take what we want and make our will accomplish it? And Tomatis understood the mechanisms of that, okay? First, you need a sense of self. You need the vestibular integrator to work, okay? But then you need the cochlear integrator to work, which gets our thoughts out into actions, gets our ideas out into creativity, okay? Gets our ideas out into words and communications. And we need to do that from a loop that connects the body, the language, back with the self. And that's one of the real, I think, beauties of what Tomatis does, okay? And the hows it does it are complex, okay? I mean, the machine, you sit there and go, I think Tomatis looks deceptively simple. You listen to Mozart music. No, it's much more than that. It's much more complex than that. But what it's doing is it's allowing us to attend and to listen, to slow it down so that the self can get in there, okay? Has time. Because for these kids, it's like going so fast, they can't get it. Can we slow it down and get that self connected? Can we get them hearing their own voice for the first time? They don't hear themselves. They're not listening to you, but more than not listening to you, they're not listening to themselves. And if we don't listen to ourselves, it's like learning to drive a stick shift car, or learning to drive a car, since not many people drive stick shifts anymore. You have to think about every motion before it becomes automatic. That's being conscious. When we learn to talk, we don't realize it now, we had to think about everything we said before it becomes automatic. And that's what Tomatis does. It slows it down so that now these children have a time to catch up and to understand that, and then start to organize themselves to get it out, okay? So it's time to get it in and understand it, and time to now organize my thought process, execute my words, and get them out in the context of human interactions, which happen at lightning speed. And that's what Tomatis does. And I see it done routinely, and I'm in awe of it. It amazes me. But I wanted to kind of come from that perspective talking tonight, okay? And there's a lot of, how does it work? How do we do the method? I'm very willing to, stay later, but we do have another speaker. I think we are going to do some questions, right?
Yeah,
we have time. We're not beyond. I don't want to, we're okay? Yeah. So I'm willing to take some of those questions, but I also have a lot of material over here. So.
Well, how do you, as a program, like you say, you program,
yes.
From this. Are you within a network of people that decide, okay, we get them to this level, when we do the foundation, how do you decide how to program to get that child to the next level?
Well, I've been doing it, a lot of my learning was trial and error, because there wasn't a good network when I first started. I was one of the few practitioners in the United States when I started 18 years ago. And I was taking traditional, very psychologically based programs, and I think sending kids out to the stratosphere sometimes. It was too much. I was going too fast into the high frequencies, and I started going, wait a second, I need to integrate this with my thinking of sensory integration. So I did a lot of learning that way. And then gradually, there are a lot of practitioners worldwide I would connect, we'd discuss, we'd think about this, okay? But my programs still are changing to this day. I learn from each child and I change and do, you know, we were doing a change in my thinking with Danny. But there is some methods for talking, but a lot of it has been just my learning, my watching, my taking Tomatis' theory of the integrators and looking, okay? So if I have a child that's really dyspraxic, okay, why do I want to go to mother's voice high frequency right away? I mean, that's not, you know, I know, yes, we learn to speak in the womb, but we need a body here first. We need a body that's organized and regulated, okay? Before we become symbolic, okay? That 18-month glass ceiling period, I think, for autistic children. First, we need to be regulated, okay? I've got to work on, and that takes a lot more of the lower frequencies, working on the body, getting the regulation, getting these kids sleeping, I mean, all kinds of things like that, okay? Then, number one, before I'm going to get symbolic, I have to have imitation. So I need a lot, again, more body stuff. Then I've got to have them capturing sounds. I want to work in mid-frequencies. Okay. Then I think when I want to get more of the emotional piece, starting to get connected with some of that body piece, then I start to go into the higher frequencies. So a lot of it is really my reading of Tomatis.
And reading of the children.
And reading of evaluating them through how his thought process occurred, okay? And slowing down the pace from what I was taught in 1992, a great deal.
I've always found you to be very reflective in your treatment of each child. But as a parent, it's challenging to come into treatment and say, like, what gains are from what? You know, what is happening from what?
Right.
And that's where the communication, I think, between observation and parent observing the therapy and understanding really what's happening, and the dialogue between the changes seen in the child and reflecting to you, that Tomatis isn't a loop and then you're done. To me, I've learned that Tomatis is rehabilitative, and that for every child, you're going to have a different timeline depending on how they are developing that sense of self. You know?
Right, exactly. And you have to, and you can't rush it. That's the part, you know, I always, oh, well, let's get to, no, you know, something, I mean, I've taken the permission now that we don't have to get to mother's voice, because mothers are always waiting for mother's voice. Well, yeah, but you know, so I've got to go on this other piece first. And if I, you know, spend all of my time here, I'm getting the foundation that I need for those other things to be more effective. And I have to move at that pace. And it's done, I mean, as you know, but for parents that don't, I mean, we do these loops, 15, and then a month's break, 8, another month's break, and 8, and that's 62 hours that will get changes that will hold, okay? But I do have parents come back for boosters, as we're saying, because I think they see some change and they're looking for further change, is what I think people are looking for, and that's why they're coming back, not because it didn't work and we're going to, you know, do it from scratch again. But we have to follow the pace of the child, and we meet. You know, we talk at the beginning, what are we seeing, you know? What are we noticing? How do we put that in context, you know? All of a sudden, my sweet little child is like having hissy fits all the time. Well, how does that make sense? And how do I see that as progress versus, you know, a regression, you know, and things like that? Or sometimes as we're changing the nervous system, we start to see visual stuff. We start to see some sensory stuff that is alarming until we understand the context of what's going on. Like kids whose eyes don't process. A lot of times I'm doing the Tomatis method and the eyes start to open up, okay? And they don't know what to do and they're stimming with the eyes. But because now we got to put, hey, my eyes do not know if I am moving or the room is moving until they check back with my ear, okay? Well, we got to hook up these eyes that have just opened up back with the ear. So we have to go through, we have to understand all these behaviors as they occur, okay? And then change the programming maybe. We don't know, okay? It may involve that. Which is why I'm reluctant with home programs. I'm doing them more because I can send out equipment that does the full Tomatis program. But I don't have that look where I see what's going on. Yes?
That's what I'm wondering about as well. I'm wondering about the necessity of having someone, you know, I have the tapes. You know, I have the tapes that were given to me, although I'm missing number 1.
Tapes of what though?
The listening program.
The listening program, right. They're not the same, but that's, I know Alex Doman well.
Oh, okay. Okay. At any rate, what's